Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of the Wisdom of Womanhood podcast and a very exciting conversation today with our very first guest. And how
Hello.
beautiful, this conversation with Mel is going to weave into the follow on from last week. So, last week's episode, which was all around diet culture, is just such a fantastic conversation coming your way. We're super, super excited to have Mel on speaking about her and what she does and the incredible impact she's making in women's lives. I'm Shawi. Hello again. It is I. And we have beautiful Pippa, who, before we go into the conversation, has a little bit of a special announcement today, don't you, Pippa?
I do. So you all know that I'm carrying my first baby and we did the gender reveal yesterday and I'm having a little baby boy. So I love that Mel's actually wearing blue because I'm always in pink and
Ah.
coral. Yeah. So I told the family yesterday and I'm really excited. So I got my little boy with me. So he's probably listening to this conversation now, taking lots of tips for when he's older.
He is. He is going to be the best man out there in the world advocating for our women.
He is. Oh, he is definitely. I love it so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
This wisdom of womanhood baby, who actually Pippa conceived virtually as we launched Wisdom of Womanhood.
And Mel's Mel's product helped me with fertility. So I just think it's beautiful how it's a full circle of finding out about what Mel does and actually integrating it into my life and my diet. And it just changed radically for me. So thank you for what
Wow.
you do, Mel. I can't wait to share with everybody.
Oh, thank you. That's so special. My goodness.
Mhm. So this is Mel. She's joining us from Australia today, and she's from the Seed Cycle. And honestly, in the last couple of weeks, diving into the work you do and your why and how you got there, it is so inspiring. And the thing I love about what you're doing is you're making health and hormone health accessible, really, really easy in the products that you have in your business. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, but particularly in this segue from last week's conversation, which was all around diet culture, give us that little bit of information around how you found yourself here. Because, I was reading about your story and how you were fed up with the current industry and trying to find this sense of wellness in your physical health, obviously emotional, mental health as
Yeah.
well, and really coming to an end of the road in terms of what you're able to do to look after yourself as a busy mum. The kind of segue into, we spoke last week around the hazards of diet culture and the attack on women's bodies and all of those, and how we're really in this transition now into a happier, healthier, more holistic way of seeing ourselves as women and our relationships to our bodies.
Oh, yes, I would love to. And,
Mm.
for me, diet culture has a lot to answer for. I really put that down to my terrible relationship with food and my body throughout my teens and my 20s. And it was I was obsessed with losing weight. Like every thought,
Mm.
every action, every minute of my day I was obsessing over trying to be skinny.
Yeah.
Then that led me to all the diets and the restriction and then I would end up putting on more weight and led me down a path of disordered eating. And then I remember the thought so vividly. I remember thinking, I'm going to study nutrition because if I study it, I'll learn how to lose weight. Like that was my only
Wow.
motive. And the first course I did was really, the basics and very still much about like talking a lot about like calories and macros and that kind of approach. And, I did learn some things, but it was when I came across functional nutrition and I started studying functional nutrition that my whole perspective changed.
Mm.
And that was because functional nutrition has a philosophy of vitalism and that our bodies have an innate intelligence.
Of
And
course.
like what, so it was like this aha moment of like, oh, so I actually have the answers.
Mm.
It's not, I don't need to read that book or follow that that person, or that list of foods, like I can, my body knows. And then another huge aha moment in the functional nutrition space was, one of the first subjects was culture and traditions and its role in nutrition and our food choices. And I come from a Croatian background, which I was trying to shut down for so long, because I would go to a family gathering and there'd be all this amazing food, and I'd be like, don't look at it, don't eat it, don't look at it, don't, and or I'd set these rules for myself of like, you can't have any of the desserts, you can only have the little bit of protein, and that's it. And then and it was horrible. And when I started to realize that culture and traditions are really important in terms of food, this is how we pass on our traditions, this is how we celebrate, and this is not a negative. It was just so beautiful, and I was able to reconnect with my family, with my culture, and and that's when I got back into the kitchen, and rather than being afraid of food, I started cooking again, or cooking really for the first time, and looking back at my grandma's old recipes and asking, Mum, can you show me how we make this? And started to go to the farmer's market, and it was just such a beautiful shift of energy. And I went from scarcity to abundance, and started looking at, what can I eat that's going to nourish me. And then the other side of it was, I did the work in terms of, I used EFT, I worked with lots of different modalities, hypnosis, I tried a counselor for a little while, and I really needed to get to the underlying root cause of, like, why was I so obsessed with weight? Why was every thought? Because even with like going to the farmer's market and doing all those beautiful shifts, I still had this thought all the time of like, I need to be skinny, I need to be skinny. And to be honest, sometimes it still pops up. And sometimes I think when you have that noise, or that food voice, you can either treat it with kindness and say, look, honey, I know I hear you, but for me, it works when I tell it to like F off. Like, I'm just
sometimes it's that harsh. Needs that, right?
Yeah. And then it just goes away, and it's like, you're not wanted here, like, not interested, thank you very much. No. And EFT, so emotional freedom techniques, was a really big part of my healing process, and really what I realized was, I had this underlying core belief of, I need to be skinny to be loved. So no wonder I'm obsessed with trying to be thin, and now that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but at the time it felt like a fact.
And for a lot of women right now, that is absolutely their truth. This is what we spoke about in the last episode, that for so many of us that have felt out of control in our lives, being able to control food was safety. And so it's that real tenderness and compassion around this conversation, right, of the stories that have either been fed through generational stories, societal, systemic failure when it comes to women in our relationships to bodies, the capitalism, consumerism industry. It's then realizing I've actually just been trying to keep myself safe or trying to feel lovable. And when we realize it's from that, it helps with that journey, right? It just helps that tenderness and compassion piece of, okay, so I'm just trying to feel safe and loved. Let's just find some tools, modalities that help, and then rewrite that story so that safety and love is different patterns and behaviors. And so, yeah, I love that you've spoken into that of diving into the why. And of course, we all want to be loved.
We do.
Core human needs.
Yeah.
I love what you said, Mel, because my husband's half Croatian. So his family are half Croatian, then American, but his lineage goes back to like me, English, Scottish, Irish. So it's interesting watching Chris with his cultural food, because Croatian like have the big, it's just the different cultures, like you said, you brought up in, and now he's got the American in him too. So America's with food, like the sizes are just like humongous. And Chris is a big guy. He's half Croatian, so he's 6'5". He's huge.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, like the different cultures, and how there was so much I was thinking when you were talking, because I was thinking about this. We used to eat to survive. Now we eat for pleasure. We're just eating just because food's good. I love food. And I was just saying to Shari before we press record, like yesterday, it popped up for me. It was like, I was looking through pregnant women and I thought to myself, I need to go and hire like a pregnancy nutritionist to help me. And I was like, why? I don't need to. I trust my body. And then how we, as we grew up as well, how we associate being skinny with healthy and how wrong that is, because we're all different shapes and sizes. There's no perfect size for healthy. And that was my struggle growing up, was like, okay, to be that size is healthy, or to be this size isn't healthy. And that's where I just had to shatter those beliefs and conditioning. I think what I loved about your product, which we're going to get into now, is just it's so simple. It's like it's just so simple in a beautiful way, because we overcomplicate everything, don't we? Like we do. We like, as you
Yeah.
just said, we want to read the right book and hire the right person and, follow the right people, but we've got all the answers within. And I've just basically not bought into, but we've just got basically the cord for your baby. They do it here in New Zealand. They take the cord. It's got stem cell and blood in it, and they
Oh,
freeze it,
yes.
so it's a perfect match for your baby. So if he God forbid ever needs it, he can take that, and that's a perfect match for him. And I'm thinking, how incredible is that a woman's body has that beautiful miraculous intelligence, that even the placenta is grown. Like that's another organ that we grow. It's just
Yeah.
fascinating. So when you moved into create the seed cycle, and I got your website up because I love where you put on your story, all great things that bloom start with a small seed. So,
Yes.
when you moved into creating the seed cycle, so anyone who's listening, they're like, what the hell is the seed cycle? What is seed cycle? So can you tell all of our listeners what this beautiful
Yes.
is?
I would love to. I'll tell you a little story about it. So, I started seeing clients. I started my business and I combined functional nutrition and EFT tapping. And I thought I was offering this holistic approach, and I was so proud. And in the beginning, it worked really well. And my ego loved it, because my clients would say things like, "I've seen every nutritionist in Canberra, and no one's helped me like you have." And we were hitting goals, and it was all going well, until it got to a stage where every single client I was working with, there was a commonality in their struggles, and it was hormones. And honestly, I didn't know much about hormones. Hormones weren't sexy. Hormones weren't interesting to me. Like, this was like 8 or 9 years ago, when gut health was really trendy. So I was all about like fermenting foods and like microbiome. And but I was like, crap, I need to learn more about hormones, because I knew, like, if we didn't address the root cause, and functional nutrition is also looking at the root cause, if we didn't address the root cause, which is a hormone imbalance, obviously, because of all these symptoms, the hormonal acne, the painful periods, the low mood before they're about to get their period, the irregular periods, the perimenopause symptoms where they felt like they were losing their minds, like, this is all hormone related. And so this is where I started researching, and I'm such a believer in food as medicine. And this is where I always come from, of like, what can we add in to support their health, or my health? And that's where I came across seed cycling. And the first article I read was by Dr. Brighton. She's a hormone specialist in the US, and she was talking about how she prescribed seed cycling within her clinic to help with PMS, perimenopause, all the things my clients are struggling with. And I remember in the article she went into the individual seeds, which we can go into, and the research on the hormone modulation and how the nutrients in the seeds help balance out estrogen and progesterone. And then as I started researching more, I found other experts that were using it, but also I realized, because it was talking about like follicular phase, luteal phase, menstrual phase, ovulation. I didn't know, I hadn't heard those terms before. And I was like, it was clear that I needed to understand this to understand how to seed cycle and teach seed cycling. So I remember reading the book In the Flow by Elisa Vitti, and a couple other really great books. And I started learning about the phases of our menstrual cycle. And I learned that as women, we have our hormones operate on an infradian rhythm, a 28-day average cycle, and men's operate on a 24-hour cycle. And I was learning all these huge, like, bombshells of information. And one of the biggest things that I just was like, I think that the missing puzzle piece for me and my own relationship with my body, relationship with food, relationship, like, self-love, was, well, if I want to be confident in who I am. I want to love myself. I want to be all these things. But firstly, I have no body literacy around my cycles and my hormones, and I hate having my period.
Oof.
So I can't love myself on this side, or want to love myself, but hate what makes me a woman and think and not really understand it. I need to love all of myself, and I need to love having my period and love my cycle. And so, that was just such a huge, huge shift, and like really just was that missing puzzle piece for me. And so as I started to learn this and understand that we have these 4 different phases of our cycle. So our menstrual phase when we're bleeding, our follicular phase, which is actually that whole first half of our cycle, ovulation, and then our luteal premenstrual phase. And we have different energy requirements in these phases. We have different nutrient requirements. So this is where seed cycling fits in. We're different in each phase. It was just such a game changer. And so I started introducing this to my clients. I started introducing them to seed cycling, and it just worked. Like, it was really, like me, for them, it was that missing puzzle piece. It was, they would come back and say, oh my goodness, like my period came and I didn't have all that pain. I didn't even know it was coming. My skin's clearing up. I had a client fall pregnant really quickly after seed cycling, and she was like, do you think it was the seeds? And I was like, I don't know. At that point, I was like, I don't know, but cool. And then now I know, like, the nutrients in the seeds are supporting a healthy cycle, a healthy ovulation, and that in turn is then increasing your chances of conception. And since then, we've just had so many beautiful messages of pregnancies, and really, so for me, it was like, yes, the nutrients in the seeds, but that this bigger, I guess, wave that's implementing seed cycling creates, which is that body literacy and understanding your cycle.
And I love how, like,
Amazing.
you're talking about something that's from Earth, like seeds, like it just, and the ancient history around seeds, like it blows my mind that it's like. And when I got pregnant, I knew that I just take them all. I just take them all now. I'm like,
Yeah.
just in my smoothies, in my oats of a morning, and it's like I just feel so nutritious when I'm eating them, because I'm like, these are from Mother Earth, and I always say thank you. And and it's like I said, it's so simple, and it makes such a difference to your hormones.
Do you know the simplicity is actually a block for people, though? Because it's like
Mm.
they're just seeds.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like how is that going to help all these huge issues? And exactly what you said, because nature knows, and our bodies know. Like, I'm not anti-supplements, but geez, like, have you seen how much is out there? Like,
I know. That's what we said last
and
week, the overwhelm. Like, I
oh
was looking at like different products being pregnant, and I said to Shawi, like, I had to stop. I just
Yeah.
was like, the right, breast pump, the right this, that, even just not about food. It was just the supplements, the collagen, and it just got too overwhelming for me. I just took a step back. Like you said, there's foods we can eat that, like you said, we're not getting enough of the vitamins we need and the minerals we need. And I think if we can take something like seed cycling, it's magical. It's done wonders for me. Especially I had a miscarriage last year, and that really messed up my cycle. First thing I did was get seed cycling, because I was like, I just know it's going to help me to regulate quicker, and it actually did. I got my period within 2 months
wow.
of miscarrying, which was quite, I was happy, because I was like, yeah, I get to try again. But obviously, it took a couple of months, but it just was the comfort knowing that my hormones are back to a state of regularity and
Yeah.
and health. That's I felt healthy, which was just
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, so
And
amazing.
the simplicity aligns though with what I feel is happening on a collective level of this returning back to nature, right? Returning back to healing modalities that have been around for centuries and centuries and thousands of years. I love how you spoke into EFT as well. And it's like our body knows. It's just a remembering of the wisdom that is currently available. And also what's incredible is now we have a lot of scientific research that actually supports this
Yes.
resurrection of really ancient knowledge. And so it's a really exciting time. And I love what is happening on a wider scale of And yes, sometimes we have to, you know, support people in that understanding of actually it really is that simple. And the overcomplication of it has been a very intentional concept that has been pushed upon us. But one thing that you just said that, gosh, I feel is pivotal within this movement and what you're doing is absolutely women's relationships to their bleeds. There is so much shame still. There is so much stigma. There is so much of like inconvenient, like it's inconvenient when I bleed. And I love how not only you're part of that conversation of diluting that unhealthy relationship for us as women to our bodies and our bleed, but here's something that will help you to have a healthier relationship because you'll know how to nourish yourself. And also as women and, you know, as mothers, actually fucking prioritizing our wellness and a part of us that we will journey through from the very first bleed until the last, right? And and still there's more work for us to do. And I really love how, you know, in the different ways that we can as women, even as us as women having this conversation on the podcast, you know, in our communities, just starting to dilute even further this unhealthy relationship to us as our bleeds, because it's us as women. And like you said, it's so large and it's been so ingrained, and, you know, just get rid of it. Be interesting to hear your response to this. I had a conversation at my GP the other day with my 12-year-old daughter. So she's been bleeding since she was 10. And we're in this conversation. I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I need to get all this stuff for her. I was like, oh, like this light bulb moment, which is really exciting because she's been having some interesting bleeds recently. So beautiful introduction into it. We did beautiful rites of passage and conversations, and, you know, there was no shame around it. And like period undies are just fucking amazing now. You know, I wish we had that when we were younger.
Yeah.
So really great conversations. And then the last couple of bleeds she was having, they were long, like quite long bleeds, and she was getting quite lethargic. And so we just wanted to get some blood testing done just to check her iron levels and stuff like that. And when I was in this conversation at the GP to get the referral for the bloods, she's 12 years old. The GP said to me, first thing she said, well, does she even need to have her periods? Should we just get rid of them? And yeah, and I'm sitting there and I've got my 3 kids, and I just keep like, I keep a real poker face. I'm like, look, you know, I want to stay in this conversation. Actually, I want to hear why she thinks that. So I asked her some questions, and I said, her not having her periods. I said, oh, they've been fine and really great up until recently. And she, you know, navigates through them really well. And then she said to me, her recommendation was for my 12-year-old daughter to first go on the pill as a way to manage her cycles and to do things like skip the sugar pills for a couple of months in a row. So she just didn't even bleed at all. And I'm sitting there like, first of all, I'm like, what the fuck? And then the next thing that she recommends is that my daughter has the Mirena implanted, because that's what they're now recommending now to 12 and 13-year-old girls who are struggling with their cycles. And honestly, like the control of just, I cannot fucking believe that you are suggesting my 12-year-old daughter who has not even used a tampon, you know, we use period undies, that she has something inserted inside of her and attached to her cervix. Like I specialize in sexual trauma. You know, I do consent education work, and I do somatic work with clients with sexual trauma, and I cannot believe that was the recommendation. And again, this like, oh, but the period is inconvenient. And then she's telling me there's all this research now that we don't even need to have our periods as women.
Oh, just
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
I'm sure
gives
everyone
me
listening is
chills.
having like a visceral reaction. Like I'm getting really
I've got
upset by
body
it.
chills. Whoa,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing that I was just thinking at that moment is I'm so glad I'm a mother sitting here right now that is educated in the understanding of the wisdom that we have in our bodies. Because if I was another mother with my 12-year-old daughter, I would be trusting the recommendation from that GP. And I probably would be thinking the best thing to do is to put my 12-year-old daughter on contraceptive and potentially even go down the road of Mirena. And I've had this conversation with a few people, and unfortunately it's happening a lot, these conversations. And so it feels as if we all need to be playing our part more and more in bringing to light the importance of the work that you do, you know, and the work that Pippa and I are doing in these conversations, because we need to protect our daughters and one another and ourselves. And a lot of information that's coming at us that is not for our wellness at all.
No, and I'm so sorry you've had that experience, because I know, even with all the knowledge and like, you know, I run 2 businesses and I do this for a living. And when I go sit in a doctor's office and I have to say no to their recommendation, it takes all of you to say, you know, like it is so hard. Like I've had that experience with even just antibiotics when my kids are little, and it's like, oh, let's just give them precautionary antibiotics. And, you know, my whole body's saying no, like they don't need precautionary anything, right? You know, like I believe in their, you know, I just, all of that. And then like you have to just say, well, maybe I know. And like, you know, it's so hard. It's so hard. And I think it is that power dynamic or whatever, you know, like, so, and unfortunately, like I'm hearing these stories every day. Like we'll do expos where we'll talk to like 500 women in 2 days. And yeah, they're very, very similar experiences with their daughters, and themselves, and feeling like they're being gaslit and different things. And so this is where, for me, like the most exciting thing I can hear is a mum saying, I've been doing seed cycling, it's helped me so much. And then they have this aha moment, like, oh, my daughter just got her period, do you think I should get her on it? And I'm like, yes, like what a beautiful introduction to food as medicine, to understanding her cycle, but also the nutrients in the seed, because, you know, their cycles are maturing, and, you know, and through that process, there may be some symptoms of heavy periods or longer periods or acne or different things while that maturing is happening. And if we can use the seeds to help that maturing, that means no GP visit and no pill. Really what I want out there. You know that you are put on, if you are put on and your cycle still maturing, it stops that maturity. So then when you go 30, 35, no wonder women like, yeah, well, you're having to help your body remember and mature a cycle that was matured. And then it's so much harder, and then you see all the other issues. So yeah, I hear a story. I'm sorry you went through that, because it's horrible.
Yeah, just
You
thinking
know,
what
it
like
was
Shawi said with her daughter, like 20 years ago, 21 years ago, that was me in the GP office, you know, saying I've got bad period pains, what can I do? And they just shoved me on a pill. So you think that was 20 years ago, and if they're doing how it's progressed. And I think this is why this conversation is so important, because loads of people don't know about seed cycling, they don't know about all these different like holistic approaches to wellness and things like that. So I think having this conversation is putting it out there for the people. Like GPs need to know about it, instead of just giving like you the scientific drug, give you the holistic approach, because it needs to have that shift in that, you know, it's like if I knew about seed cycling at 12 years old, I would have just been like, yeah, give me that. But as a 12-year-old, you just look to your mum for guidance, you look to your GP for guidance, because you don't know any different. So having that option is just, it's incredible. So
Yeah, so excitingly, we are now going to GPs and educating them on seed cycling, and they're wanting fact sheets that they can give to their patients. And so the one GP that came to me recently, she was trying to find an alternative solution, because a lot of the women that were coming in to see her were having hormone issues, but culturally the pill wasn't something that they can take or want to take. So that's why she was looking for other solutions. But regardless of how they're coming, it's really exciting, and it does give me hope, because, you know, on one hand, I'm speaking to women and hearing these stories, and you know, it can feel really heavy and hopeless. And then when I get to do that, it's like, okay, there is hope.
So a drum roll. What seeds are in seed cycle?
Yes. Okay. So for the purposes of seed cycling, we break the cycle into 2 phases. Our first phase from day 1 of bleed to around day 14 or ovulation, and then second phase from ovulation back to day 1. Seeds in phase 1, super easy. You probably already have them in your pantry. We just want to make sure they're certified organic, and we grind them up so the body can access the nutrients. Flax seeds and pumpkin seeds. Now, the reason why these seeds are so beneficial in the first half of your in your cycle is because they are supporting the body with the production and elimination of estrogen. And so some of the superstar nutrients in that first phase are lignans, which are a form of phytoestrogens, omega-3, zinc, magnesium, and the fibers as well are helping that elimination of that excess estrogen, because a lot of the time when we're speaking with our naturopaths, our nutritionists, the ones looking at blood work, our bodies are producing too much estrogen and it's not eliminating it. And then that's having a flow-on effect in our second phase when we're not producing enough progesterone. And then this can cause the moods, the mood issues, the cravings, the painful periods. Progesterone is a beautiful calming hormone, our sleep hormone. And when we don't have enough, oh geez, life's harder. So second phase seeds, sunflower seeds and sesame seeds. Sunflower seeds are really high in vitamin E. And so this is why I think women will say within the first month, geez, my skin feels so bright. It feels glowy. They'll say, like, I didn't even have a breakout this month. My skin's clearing up. And then again, those beautiful, there's selenium in there. There's omega-3s, the fibers. Women will say, oh, I'm going to the bathroom more regularly. My stomach, I don't feel as bloated. So all these beautiful flow-on effects from the nutrients and nutrients from nature that our bodies recognize. I tell this story a lot, but it was just such a huge realization for me. I had a biochemist come to me and say, we want to help you put your product into a supplement form. So we'll like extract the oils and like recreate the nutrients so then people can just take a supplement. And my whole body said, no way, I'm not smarter than nature. I don't want to recreate something that's already perfect. And that made me realize how important it is that seed cycling stays as it was in terms of using the seeds. And all we're doing is grinding up the seeds, so we're cracking that shell so the body can absorb the nutrients. We're not trying to recreate. Like I'm not smarter than nature.
Even our ancestors, they would ate seeds and nuts and berries, and that's how they consume it that way. Your body has to go through the whole process. So thank you, Mother Earth, for beautiful seeds.
Yeah.
I want them now to eat them. I'm craving them now.
Beautiful.
I want them.
Yeah, and that's the process. And so you're having those flaxseed, and so the therapeutic dose is really important as well. So 1 tablespoon ground of each seed. You're having them in the flaxseed and pumpkin seed in phase 1, sesame and sunflower in phase 2, and you're cycling in that way. People will say to me, oh, can I just have all 4 seeds? And yes, absolutely, that's a great nutrient source. But when we're trying to support a healthy menstrual cycle, we're using it as a therapeutic practice for hormone modulation. We want to cycle the seeds and remember what we spoke about that body literacy, about knowing where you're at in your cycle. So seed cycling is such a great way to do that. The other main question I'll get is like, well, how do I seed cycle if I don't have a regular period, if I am on the pill, if I'm going through perimenopause? And this is where I think seed cycling was kind of put in the woo world for a long time, and it just everyone needs to know about it. But you use the moon phases, which mimic a regular menstrual cycle, and throughout history, women have used the moon to regulate their cycles to support fertility. We used to all bleed together on a new moon and ovulate on a full moon, and so this is where like seed cycling is bringing some of that ancient wisdom and then also combining with the modern science and what we know about nutrients. And so this is where I'll have women who start seed cycling with the moon because their period's missing or whatever else, and then after a couple of months their period will regulate, and then they can switch over and seed cycle with their own period, or they'll go through menopause and then they'll continue cycling with the moon, because when we're in our menstruating years, our dominant rhythm, we're cyclical beings. Our dominant rhythm is the moon, is our menstrual cycles. But once we no longer menstruate, the next dominant rhythm for us is the moon. And so we can seed cycle with the moon. And women will say to me, Mel, like I wasn't sure about this whole full moon, new moon thing, but so new moon, phase 1, full moon, phase 2, and then they'll say, but I feel so much more grounded. My skin feels good. I feel like I'm in flow. And because they've been able to reconnect with nature's rhythm. And it's so beautiful. It's one of another favorite part of seed cycling is reconnecting with our cycles and the moon phases.
I have one last question for you, Mel.
Yeah.
So how would you, for me being pregnant, would you recommend taking all of the seeds together, or would you still mimic the cycle kind of, because obviously even though I'm not menstruating, like I'm still having a cycle as a woman, so I just wanted to get your take on that.
You could use them. You could definitely take all 4, and that's great. You could use the moon, because postpartum, that moon rhythm is going to be your savior. It's going to help. It's going to help with all those hormones. It's going to help you, similar to what my clients say, feel grounded and like you're in flow. And so you'll postpartum continue seed cycling with the moon until your period returns, and then you can seed cycle back.
So
on
new
your
moon
period.
is basically like the day 1, then dates obviously. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's another product that you do that actually I would love for you to speak about, because I weight train and I take protein. And so I am always on the lookout for protein alternatives. Like I take dairy-free, like vegan protein powder, and all the time. And because I'm vegan, so then I make sure that I'm upping my protein and everything. But you now have the product that is associated with the seeds and also has protein.
Yes. So it's been we were always having to compromise on like, this one's okay. Like it's got a natural flavor in it, which I don't really love because, no one knows what a natural flavor actually is, or, it has one emulsifier in it. But, this one, I guess it's the best out of all of them. And I got to the point where I started making my own, and I was using Inca Inchi protein for a long time. It's a plant-based protein. It's beautiful. It's easy to digest. And then more recently, hemp came on the market. So I've been using hemp and Inca Inchi, and they're just such beautiful protein sources. And so what I've done now is I've combined seed cycling. So I have a phase 1 seed cycling plus protein and a phase 2 seed cycling plus protein. I use the Inca Inchi and the hemp protein. I use raw cacao because that's the best plant-based source of magnesium. I've added camu camu in, which is a really great source of vitamin E and vitamin C, and particularly for iron absorption. Vitamin C is really important. And so this is what I've created. In our phase 2, I include that phase 2 is called Cinnamon Spice Radiant. So I include cinnamon, cardamom, and nutmeg. And that's cinnamon in our second phase.
I'm so hungry now. I'm like, give me, you are taking all my boxes.
I just like, we need cinnamon in our second phase because, our blood sugar and insulin is more sensitive and we're craving more carbs. And so, and then in phase 1, it's chocolate flow. So there's more cacao in there. So it's nice and chocolatey for when you're on your bleed. And it's been incredible. Like it took a long time to get it right because, I didn't want to use any sweetener, artificial sweetener. And I do the research in terms of, I don't just look at like the product. I want to know how. So I want to know how that camu camu is actually made, where it comes from. And then certified organic's really important to me, and that just takes a long time. So it feels like I was saying to my husband, it feels like I'm ready to give birth and like everyone's bloody stopping me from pushing this baby out and I can't handle it anymore. Like I just need to birth this protein. And so now that interestingly, I got sick after, and I got sick after I birthed both babies. So I've still got a bit of a cold, but it's been so incredible. And like women reaching out being like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Like, and the other,
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm just so annoyed about is like most of the protein powders out there on the market are made for men. They're too high in protein. Firstly, like we can't absorb a lot of the protein, and it's all like pea and or like soy, even rice protein. Like I'm not a fan.
Away.
Or whey, just you know, for some it's okay, but for most of us women, it's just you know, and like you don't want to feel bloated and gassy after you have a protein supplement, like, and that's what I felt after all of them, and so until I found Inky and Chi and hemp. So yeah, it's been very, very exciting. We sold out within like 24 hours or something crazy. It was it's been such a wild ride with that, and it feels just, yeah, it's been the best. So exciting.
It's interesting you mentioned the
Amazing.
soy and the protein as well, because my husband and his ex-student, they did a lot of testing on soy and hormones in rhinos, and how too much soy in a woman's diet can really affect hormones and stuff. So it's interesting, isn't it? How like we've got to take that into consideration as well. So when I was drinking soy milk, my husband was like, just try not to drink too much, just try and have oat and other things. But again, sometimes I want cow's milk. I'm in between different ones at the moment. So and I'm pregnant, so I've got to listen to my body. So it's interesting how it all just ties in with research and people like you doing all the nutrition.
Yeah. My issue with soy as well is 90% of the world's soy crop is genetically modified.
Yeah.
You know, that, and yes, I've seen the research on soy as well for women. So, you know, it is finding what works for you. And, you know, like there might be times where, like you said, like I'm craving, listen to your body. I'm craving more cow's milk, and it's working for me. And then you might move through a phase where it's like, oh, that's not sitting so well now. This is working a little bit better. And sometimes I need a supplement. Sometimes I'm really organized and prepping all my food and I'm having enough protein. But for me, like as soon as I'm busy and I'm not as organized, like protein is the first thing that I don't get enough of. So I really wanted to have a supplement that I could have that was real food, that was going to help me with my protein intake. Yeah.
This is awesome. I can't wait to see what the
and
future
I can
holds for Seed
imagine,
Cycle.
yeah, and I can imagine that there shall be more to come from this. I know that so much of what you're passionate about is education as well. So it's exciting to know you and what you're doing and to be able to spread the word so that really we can educate people more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I feel so loved by you guys. I'm so appreciative that we've been able to chat. I feel like I could chat with there's so many more things we could chat about. Like I've loved this so much. So thank you.
Thank you for coming
Our
on.
pleasure.
So grateful for you and your creations and your energy, and yeah, just excited to see where you're gonna go.
So, on social media, how can everyone find you and your website and everything so they can come and check you out and get amongst the seed cycling? We're going to start a new avenue of trending and we'll bring you into New Zealand.
I would love
get
that.
everyone amongst it.
Yes, please. I'd love to come. And we ship worldwide, which is incredible. And the website's theseedcycle.com.au, Instagram, _seed_cycle. I share lots of education and also recipes. Like I would never want someone to stop seed cycling because they got bored of it. Like I'm going to show you so many delicious ways to incorporate those seeds. So I do a lot of that on Instagram and TikTok. You can pretty much find me everywhere. But also we have a 1300 number. So, you know, give that a call if you want to chat. We also now do mini nutrition consults with our nutritionist, Serena. So, you know, if you're like wanting to know, is seed cycling going to help me? You can book in a consult. You can do our quiz, which can help you as well. Like my thing is like resources. I want to give you lots of resources, lots of support, lots of education.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your time, Mel. So great to meet you.
Thanks, guys.
Really hope you enjoyed it, guys. Oh, so good.
Let's start a seed cycling trend.
Yes. Take care, guys.
Bye. Mwah.
Bye.